Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Broadbent. I'm going to share my screen out. I've got a couple of slides that we're going to roll through. I am with BeyondTrust Software. I am one of the solutions engineering directors for BeyondTrust. So let me share this out real quick and we'll go from there. So today we're going to talk about privilege management and specifically universal privilege management. As we walk through this, we're going to have a conversation around what exists today in your environment. We're going to talk about ways that we can protect that. We're going to talk about various aspects that are going on in the world today, in the cybersecurity world today, and ways that we can manage the explosion of privileges that are going on all around our enterprises, right? So we have not just privileges with users, but we're having privileges with non-human accounts, IoT devices, all sorts of things that we need to be able to secure. And it's a challenge for us because that attack surface continues to widen. So we need to be able to shrink those windows of exposure across that widening attack surface. Whether or not we have on-premises accounts, cloud hybrid accounts, IoT, or now even DevOps accounts that have secrets that need to be managed, and even the concept of secret sprawl inside those DevOps environments where there are multiple secrets and they're not being managed, they're not being rotated. We are ending up with more and more unknown credentials. And we're ending up with no consolidated visibility across our environments of these credentials that exist. So we have to do something about this. And it's hard to do when the number of privileged users is growing rapidly. We used to have non-privileged users, and then we'd have help desk users. And now we end up with those, again, machines and IoT devices. We end up with app admins and developers. We end up with third-party vendors. We have people who are responsible for maintaining the applications that we use in our environment. All of those things are expanding rapidly the number of privileged users that we have in our environment. And as we have those increased amount of privileges, threat actors continue to take advantage of this. These statistics are according to the Verizon data breach investigations from 2020. 37% of breaches involved stolen credentials. Companies experiencing a data breach by a vendor were 58%. 66% of businesses were unprepared in 2020 for the rise in remote working, and over 56% of threats that happened or breaches that happened exploited critical Microsoft vulnerabilities that could have been mitigated by not having admin rights. And this is where BeyondTrust believes that we have this new vision of universal privilege management. Universal privilege management is the concept of not just managing your privileged accounts, but managing privileged assets, managing privilege itself across your environment through a series of policies, through a series of vendor management tools, through a series of just-in-time access, zero trust type configurations. So this particular challenge brings, or this particular group brings an entire new set of problems or challenges. What vendors are doing in our network? Do things integrate with my ITSM controls? Can I pass my compliance audits? Apply least privilege best practice? Can I secure all of my privileged credentials in my network? Can I block non-compliant software? These are all challenges that we're facing in today's environment of privilege with IoT and applications and advanced users that we have. So we have to figure out what we're going to do around managing these challenges. And it's really about more than managing the passwords in a vault for a limited set of privileged users. It's really not enough. As we look at these devices that are out there, as we look at the type of users that we have to be able to secure the concept of privilege in our network more so than just securing a few passwords or maybe having some sessions reported. And the traditional password management that exists can't really address the problems of this universal privilege management, of this exploding landscape of privilege. It doesn't give us a full picture. It doesn't always meet compliance needs. It still concedes to too many threat vectors. The reporting has gaps in it. Lateral movement happens still, and you can't stop it. And it's also slow to deploy. It's slow for adoption. And again, it only tackles those specific subset of users that actually have privilege. At BeyondTrust, we look at the attack chain like this. And everywhere that we have a BeyondTrust logo are places that we have an opportunity to stop the attack chain. We can stop the attack chain from external threats, because as we do this, we have the ability to take away VPN access and have vendors come in through TLS tunnels, that they have specific access to specific computers and they're not VPNing into an entire network, with the opportunity to move laterally. We have the opportunity to be able to record the sessions that they're doing, to not give them credentials to those privileged computers. All of those things help us stop the external threats and reduce that attack vector. From an inside perspective, yes, we have traditional password management where we can make sure that the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, are secure, that they're rotated, that things, that accounts, that applications that need privileged access maybe use an API so that they get application to application support. All of these things are items that we can take that one spot and assist in securing the attack chain there. And then as we move from there to privilege escalation, we talk about the ability for items to be escalated. So even if they get a set of credentials, leveraging tools that we have, those credentials themselves aren't privileged, but actually running a set of policies, the applications and policy are privileged. So even if they get a set of credentials and they begin to attempt to move laterally, they can't really do anything because it's the policy that's allowing, it's allowing specific applications. So as we do this, we have the opportunity to be able to make sure that specific applications can run, and maybe not extra applications. So maybe Word can run, but it can't launch a PowerShell script if you have a macro that's been that has a vulnerability in it, or that somebody's attempting to use to breach. As we move through and we have lateral movement, the concept of not actually giving people extra access more than they need. So shutting off the ability of computers or privileged assets to be able to remote into each other, but actually having to move through a specific appliance. Those are all things that we can do. Again, the concept of the data breach part itself, where they're actually taking data, since we're recording things, since we're watching these accounts, we can shut them down, we can lock them out, and we continue to apply these policies and principles as they begin to probe for additional opportunity as well. Successful digital transformation needs universal privilege management. We have to have the ability to control accounts and credentials across your network, the entire ecosystem. We have to be able to secure your remote access for remote workers and vendors without using a VPN. Clearly, we've seen this challenge grow exponentially over the past 18 months as the remote workforce has increased. We need to be able to eliminate excessive privileges so that even when or if an attack happens, the severity with which it happens is not near as high. The idea of universal privilege management is the concept that we are going to secure and manage privileges across every user, session, and asset. We combine privilege password management, endpoint privilege management, and secure remote access to get this concept of universal privilege management. We think these things together unify your privileged universe to drastically reduce your attack surface, whether it's an insider or external threat. Once an attacker gains admin level privileges, they can move laterally around your network, often unnoticed. Our solution wants to break that attack chain at multiple stops and quickly mitigate any damage that may come into play. So what does the path to universal privilege management look like? We have a lot of different use cases that we're trying to solve for, but it's important that it has clearly some foundational items like securing privileged assets, like IAM integrations, like privileged account integrations, like DevOps integrations. All of the things that we've laid out here are all things that are all use cases that a privileged management solution has to be able to solve for, including application reputation. Our product portfolio, as we take a look at it, we look at those three pillars that I talked about a minute ago. We have privileged password management, which includes our password safe product, which is doing password vaulting, privileged accounts management, session management, application to application support, auditing on all these accounts. These are all things that password safe is going to offer you. DevOps secret safe does secrets management and security for your cloud infrastructure and for your DevOps situations. And as we move into our endpoint privilege management, we have privilege management for Windows and Mac. So this is giving you least privilege and advanced application control. Do we want this application to run? What specific permissions does it need to run? Do we want it to be able to launch sub-processes, child processes that may inherit the rights of the parent? These are all things that we can do with our endpoint privilege management for Windows and Mac. Then there's privilege management for Unix and Linux. This is about root access control and auditing. So when you have your typical sudo type situations, you have a sudo policy file that ends up sitting on a Linux box. This policy file actually needs to get copied to each Linux server that you have. There's no auditing for it. There's no reporting for it. Or if there are, they're third-party utilities that come after the fact. What we're talking about is actually a centralized policy server that audits every root command that you run or every elevated command that you run. And the policy can be changed on one central location and be able to be pushed out to the rest of your Nix environment. And then we also have the ability to have an Active Directory bridge. So that's the other part of our endpoint privilege management portfolio that allows us to be able to leverage your existing Active Directory infrastructure and use that as a source of authentication for Unix and Linux devices so that you can have security groups, users, group policies, all of those things being pushed out to your Nix environment. And then there's the secure remote access pillar. So with secure remote access, it has two distinct products. Privileged remote access is for security and IT operations. It's about session management, auditing remote access for vendors, for contractors, for outside IT staff that may not be working internally, doing all of this without a VPN and being able to audit and record the stuff that's going on. And then there's remote support, which is for service desks, for being able to do screen sharing, chat support, ITSM integration, that end user help desk type support. This product is best in class for. As we break down that privileged password management, that concept of being able to secure all of the privileged accounts, the concept of being able to record and monitor your privileged activity so that you know what's going on, being able to have all of your secrets administration in one place, in one tool, and other non-human identities without inhibiting the workflows. And I'm actually going to walk through a quick demo of our privileged password management tool. I have pre-recorded this just to make sure, but as we walk through it, one of the challenges in adopting a tool like this is that admins want to be able to just continue to do their job, right? They don't actually want to add another interface. So we allow them the opportunity to use tools like they normally use, like Mobix term, And we can give them strings that they can use that will allow them to check out sessions directly from the tools that they're used to using. When we're doing this, we can say, check out a Windows server and use our normal local credentials or our standard user credentials to be able to log into this Windows box. As you can see, there's a special string there. And as we type in this password, it's going to just grant us a session as an elevated user on this app server. You can see it's loading our session. As this loads, this has all been done in a VMware workstation environment. So some of it loads just slightly slow, but as you can see, we are now in this system, and we're in this system as a privileged user. We can open Chrome as a privileged user. We can open applications as a privileged user. Everything that we are doing in this session right now is being recorded. So that way we can come back and look at this later. And your admins at the same time aren't having their workflows disturbed. So we can do this with other types of connections. We can do it with Linux boxes. We can do it with Oracle databases. In this case, we're going to connect to an Oracle database that's on a Linux server. And again, we are still using our standard user credentials. We don't know what the privileged credentials are for these accounts. So we get into these this Oracle server that is running on Linux. Any command that we type, anything we do, the keystroke logging is enabled and it's recorded so we can actually search for this stuff later. And at the same time, again, we get that compliance and audit feature without having to make them disturb their particular workflow. And that's important because that's one of the biggest challenges to adopting a privileged user or privileged account management tool. Is that they don't want to have to change their interfaces. But occasionally you still have those people who have limited use, or they have, they only need it occasionally, or maybe they do need a workflow involved. So somebody needs to approve them getting in there. So we still do have that interface that they can use. And with that interface, we have the ability for them to be able to open up and check out passwords. And they can do it the same way right through the web interface. This can process through workflows. You can say, hey, look, I need them to have an approval if they're on a specific subnet, if they're in a specific IP address, if they're outside of the network, if it's outside of their normal working hours. These are all things that we can force them to do and force through workflows so that we add some intelligence and context around privilege and their ability to do it. So as we log in, with Jeff's user here, this is going to be Jeff Andrews. We can see that we have the concept of team passwords, which is essentially just a shared password vault that people can get rid of sticky notes with, right? So they can have it all in one place. They can see their passwords to users or to like websites and things that they may use. And you can see what that looks like in here. And it's just this group of team passwords that they can manage, that they can use for testing, for specific sets of credentials to access maybe an Azure lab or something like that. And you can see that we can put them in folders. We can organize these things and you can see who the owner is. So if you need to be able to find out who manages that particular password or what it was when you put it in, you can see what those look like as you're walking through the team password section. This was our user #1 requested feature, was the ability to be able to have that shared password environment that they could just manage and use as a repository. Those passwords are not managed. It's just in there as a vault, a secure place to be able to store those. This is actually the vault. This is password safe. As you see, we have all of our servers listed here. You can have favorites that you select. That's going to appear on your homepage. As we walk through the various options that are here, we can use the Quick Connect feature. The one-click launch is going to be available to you if you don't actually have to go through the workflows that I was talking about earlier and have somebody approve checking it out. So from here, we can, with this particular user, they have the option to retrieve the password, or they can just check out an SSH session like we did before. Again, this is all being recorded and audited, and these are all different ways that users are able to access, and you're able to grant them access to the privilege that they need for these trusted assets and these privileged assets that are in your environment. Sometimes it's not just Linux boxes that we want to use, though. Sometimes we need to connect to a database. We need to be able to edit that. So we have multiple built-in database connections that are supported. As you can see here, we have 2 databases that we've configured in this lab. One of those is Microsoft SQL Server. The other one's Oracle. As we walk through this, we have applications that are configured to be able to edit those or to be able to log into those databases so that somebody gets a specific session to a database utility and they don't get access to anything else on that server but the database. So that's what we're walking through right here. We're connecting to this. As we do, you'll see that we logged in to the Windows box and then we launched one specific application. And this is the application that we're using to manage Oracle. And it used those SA accounts, those SQL or those database admin accounts to be able to log in to Oracle without giving them access to the rest of the box. So it's all about giving people the permissions that they need without over permissioning them. And again, making sure that we can audit all of that, making sure that all of that information is collected. As we move through our, the product suite that we have, let's see here. The next one that we talked about was endpoint privilege management. So endpoint privilege management is about removing excessive end user privileges. Mac, Windows, Unix, Linux. Part of the strategy here is to be able to do it quickly, to be able to eliminate those local admin rights across most of the endpoints and get that rapid time to value. And we do that by having out-of-the-box policies that are quick start policies that fit most of the types of scenarios that you're going to have in your environment. We want to be able to stop various attacks using just-in-time privilege so that only applications and approved scripts can run and they get just the privileges that they require to be able to launch them. And again, it's all about compliance and auditing and making sure that we can track these things. So I do have a quick demo of our EPM solution. So as we're walking through this in a normal environment without our product, you would get a UAC prompt, right? The unanswerable question. Hey, I need you to be able to log in here and I need you to grant me privilege to install this application. This is what a typical end user would see if they didn't have admin rights. What we want to do is take that away from the user and leverage the tools that we have to put that in a policy and put that back on the application. So you can see we've got other applications on here. Say this user doesn't have the ability to be able to alter network connections, right? Again, that UAC prompt that says, no, you don't have the rights to do this. So this particular user is just a standard user on their box. But as we take a look at this and we begin to enable the policies that our endpoint privilege management solution allow you to take, you're going to see that we have policies built in for almost every use case. So with when you install the product, we actually have template policies that we already have built in. So in this case, we're going to import templates. As we import this template, you're going to see there's several of them there. We have quick start for Windows. That's what we're going to start with. Or maybe you have Mac, so you could have imported that quick start for Mac product. Or there's TAP, which is about trusted applications. Again, that's the concept of not letting other things launch out of something that you trusted. But today, we're going to look at the quick start for Windows. So as you can see, we have all users. We have high flex, medium flex, and low flex. High flex users are essentially those developers in your environment, people that are used to having admin rights, and they want that experience. So as we enable high flex, what you're going to see is what that would look like. So this user was used to having admins, maybe they're executives, maybe they're developers, maybe they're admins. And you can see instead of that UAC prompt, all we're going to get is just, hey, you sure you want to do this? And if they say yes, we're going to go ahead and allow them to do this. All this stuff is being audited. It's all being recorded. So we know what they installed. We know what they're doing. And it's allowing us to do that. And we can choose what they have access to even in system settings. So if we go back to the network applications of being able to see what's going on with being able to see what's going on with their Ethernet adapter or their network adapter. As we walk through this, we're just going to give them that standard admin privilege. That way, we don't impede their workflow. These are people that are used to being able to do their job and not have to ask for separate credentials or type in extra credentials. And so they want to be able to check the properties on their Ethernet adapter. And when they do, we're just going to let it happen. Again, this is for a specific subset of your users that are used to having privileges already, and they want to continue that experience. What are we adding? We're adding the fact that their user itself is not credentialed. We're still using the same user that we were at the beginning when it was prompting you for UAC and wanting you to log in as someone else. Maybe there's like that middle group where, hey, look, we think we can mostly trust them, but we want to add some additional verification. Some directors, some mid-management, maybe some tier 1 help desk users. So when we enable that workflow mode, we will get a similar experience, but now what we're going to do is say, hey, I need you to tell me why you want to do this. Again, that's all audited, recorded. We can check that later. We can customize these reasons. We can even make this an input box. So they literally have to input their reason for wanting to elevate controls. And then we're just going to let them do this. Hey, I need this product for my job. Okay, we trust you enough. Go ahead and install it. But we're not giving that user rights here. We're telling that application that it has the privileges to elevate, and we are elevating the application. And then we get to those standard user options, right? So kind of the situation that we started with where we were being prompted for UAC, but in this case, again, we don't want somebody to come through and enter admin credentials because we don't want those credentials cached on this workstation or in memory. So what we're actually going to do is leverage a challenge and response code. So help desk can provide them with a code to be able to elevate this. In addition to that, you can use a username and password here, but it's not just an admin username and password. It's whatever security group or users you delegate to be able to say, yes, these people can approve this request. So we don't have to put those privileges on the endpoint. Or on the user itself, we just have to put the privileges with the application. That's important here. We want to be able to enable users to do their jobs, do them correctly, and still not give them the permissions that they want, as in the permissions on the user that they want. We want to give them the controls that they want. We want to give them the experience they want without the user itself having additional privileges. And then we have secure remote access. That concept of being able to enable vendor access, enable remote access for your service desk securely, making sure that we have flexibility in deployment, making sure that our service desk can ask for help, that our end users can securely ask and request for help and be able to get help from the service desk without worrying about credentials and without worrying about how they're going to get that access, bandwidth, those kinds of challenges. So with secure remote access, we have actually a thick console that you can log in. With this thick console, you can see this is the console that the service desk would use to be able to control end users, workstations. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. Number one, again, we're running in a VM lab, so you're going to see as I control various systems that are inside this. But the idea here is we support two very different methods. The first is what we would call attended access. This is the concept that, hi, Mr. End User, Mr. Customer, I understand there's a challenge here. I understand you're having a problem. Let me see if I can help you. So Mr. End User, Miss End User will go to a specific web page that hits our appliance or hits our software. And as they do that, they can select their representatives. Now, this screen right here is important because you also have the ability to be able to do other things. Like you can select your specific representative, or if you want to submit an issue, and we have integration with ITSM, with service desk ticketing, that allow you to be able to workflow these issues to specific departments. So maybe you have an infrastructure issue, maybe you have a UC issue, maybe you have a security issue, and we can workflow that and put them in the appropriate portals where they are. Or we can just have them, click on the session. So in this case, what we're going to do is actually just have them, hey, this is Calvin, and Calvin is going to do this particular, solve this particular challenge. So you've gone to the website. He's in his console already. He can see his queue right there. And as he's doing this, he has the opportunity to be able to select which person that he's working on. And this will give him an opportunity as he works through it to be able to work on multiple customers at once. Obviously, Service Desk is about efficiency. It has some built-in chat support so that you can actually leverage chat instead of being on the phone, so that you can help multiple customers at the same time. As you can see, if he clicks on that user's name, he'll actually begin to open up a session with him. The Service Desk staff can actually start a session and give them a specific session key. So if you have a lot of people in your help desk staff, or you don't want your end users picking their favorite IT guy, you can just enable the session key option and have them given session keys as they need them. Clearly, the issues that I talked about earlier are all customizable so that you can have those, you can make those routable to specific groups. Again, like I said, in this case, we're going to click on Calvin. We're going to pop open chat. And as we do that, it's going to tell us to enter our name. So we're going to say, hey, I am, Mr. Customer here, and I'm going to have a chat with you. So for this, Calvin's going to talk to Calvin. And you can see over on the, you can see in the console, hey, look, here's an incoming connection from Calvin. He wants to talk to you. Do you accept this? The customer is joining the support session now, so we can go ahead and accept that. Again, you can also see the queue that exists there. From here, we can enable screen sharing. And as we do this screen sharing, again, this is all an attended session. The customer requested this access. The customer requested this particular support. And now we're going to help them. And we can continue chatting with them throughout this entire process. They're going to get notifications of it. And all of this information is going to be audited and reported. So we're going to have these chats that can be saved for later. Again, we have built-in chat messages. So, hey, here you go. That way I don't have to type it 14 times, right? So Service Desk usage is all about efficiency and making sure that as they roll through this, that they can do it as quickly as possible. But in this case, we're talking about universal privilege management. So this is about also making sure that things are secure. We're using TLS encryption. We are not using VPN access to be able to do this. We're not enabling remote control on all of our workstations. Instead, we're being very specific, very pointed about how our service desk can get access to our end users. And this is becoming more and more important as the remote workforce continues to proliferate. We have to have a way for our help desk to securely access the remote workforce and be able to work on their problems. Now, the other thing that we have is jump clients. And as we talk about jump clients, I'm going to jump back so that you guys can see this for just a second. As we talk about jump clients, one of the things that we talk about is the concept of unattended access. So sometimes Mr. End User wants to be able to go to lunch, or maybe you have servers that you need to be able to work on. So that's what these are. They're jump clients. They are actually an agent that resides on that computer that continues to give us access whether or not the person is in front of the computer, the end user is in front of the computer. It's unattended access. I am going to work on this so that I'm going to work on this particular system and nobody's in front of it. And I know that I have permissions to do that. And you can set up those jump groups that you see on the left-hand side for specific people. You can, so specific service desk users could have access to a specific group of servers or a specific group of desktops. And all we do is click on it and we enable screen sharing. And we have that unattended remote access. Again, showing the end user or the end device that their system is being recorded and that we are there and we're providing some level of support to them for that. As we take a look at these solutions, we want security solutions that are going to drive your business. We want things that are limitless. We're not just talking about passwords. We're talking about applications and remote access and DevOps and all the other things that you have going on in your environment. We also want it to be frictionless. As I showed you guys that demo of EPM, it was important to note that it was all about the end user experience. It was about giving them the least inhibited experience that they could have for their job function while still ensuring that they were not overprivileged as users, therefore reducing the risk of lateral movement or taking those credentials and hijacking them and leveraging them somewhere else. We also want a solution for your business that's accelerated. EPM comes with the quick start policy that I imported. I hadn't made changes to that policy. We were using those high, medium, low flex right out of the box. It's about getting yourself as secure as possible, as quick as possible, so that there's real value and a real value in how fast you do it. It's all about getting up and running quickly so that you mitigate those attack services as fast as you possibly can. But security is about more than our set of tools. It's about an ecosystem. That's why it's important to us to have integration with third-party solutions to begin to maximize your existing IT investments. Every good PAM solution is better when it leverages an identity access solution, an identity management solution to be able to grant access and privilege to specific accounts or security groups or things like that. So being able to do threat analytics based on the information that our audit finds, being able to do RPA and make sure that you have the processes automated and that you have a way into those machines that's secure and that doesn't allow other people access. Being integrated with the most advanced DevOps platforms, the most used DevOps platforms. Looking at SIM connectors and GRC or service management or access management, cloud platforms. These are all important integrations as we're taking a look at your universe of privilege and wanting to make sure that security is at the forefront of that particular privilege. We are a PAM market leader in this space. The analysts have agreed. We have an advanced PAM tool for global enterprises, for mature use cases. You can see us in the upper right. You can see us right behind CyberArk from a product services store for global enterprises. You can see us in Forrester in that top right corner. Kuppinger Cole, we're right there. All of these things accounts to us being a PAM market leader in this space. We have 20,000 customers in over 100 countries. We have a lot of pretty logos that we get to put on the board here. We have 75 of the Fortune 100 companies. We have a 90% gross retention rate. We have a market leading 40 NPS score. We are very proud of that. We believe in our culture and our customers. And we have a 95% CSAT score for our customer experience. I can tell you as somebody who's worked here for several years, the culture and support of our company that we have in support of our customers is second to nowhere that I have ever been. It is absolutely amazing what our teams do to work together to support customers in their PAM deployment and in their universal privilege journey. That's it for me. I will stop here and see if you guys have any questions that you, I don't see any in the Q&A right now. Drop them in Q&A or chat. I'll be glad to answer any of those questions that you guys have now. All right. Well, again, I'm Josh Broadbent with BeyondTrust Software. I'm one of the solutions engineering directors here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team. And this session is being recorded so that you can go back and watch it later. Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.